Alright, welcome back. What you see on the screen right now is the teddy bear. I decided I was no longer going for anything mouse type, and I gave him a little mouth, and I've colored him. So this tutorial we're going to go over a little bit about materials and different kinds of attributes. So when I left you, you probably had something like this with your mouse on the screen, what have you. So what we're going to do is we created the bear mouse guy primarily from the polygons tab. Now we're actually going to click over to the rendering tab, because that's what has our materials on it. So these 5 gray ball swatch things here each represent different materials. I'm actually going to reopen my uncolored Mickey scene, and okay, so you can see this is before I had a mouth on him as well, but it'll function all the same. So I'm going to pick the object that I want to apply the color to or apply the material to. So I'm just going to start with his head. I know that I want to make him brown. Now if you look at these 5 swatches up here, these 5 little boxes here, the preview gives you some idea of how it's going to reflect light. So I have to think, it's a bear, so his fur's not going to be real shiny. So I'm going to click this middle one, which is a Lambert, to assign a material to it. And that will open up my attribute editor over on the side here. So the easiest way to change a material's color is going to be clicking this little color swatch here. So I click on the little gray box, and then I get a color picker, and I can pick whatever color I want them to be. You can move around these sliders and get it closer to the color that you want. I'd say that's pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. And then up at the top of the attribute editor here, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this Bear Fur Dark. And you can call it whatever you want, but give it a name that means something so you know what it's used for. Like I didn't call it Bear Head because I know his ears are going to be that color too. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to click on his little snout here and click another Lambert up at the top here and click in the color swatch, and I'm actually going to give him a little bit lighter of a nose. For some reason that just seems like the bear's nose fur is lighter. You got me, I don't know, too many video games as a child. Okay, same thing, same situation for his nose. I kind of picture his nose being a little wet, so it would be kind of shiny. So I'm going to give it, this looks about how I think his nose would shine. Maybe this. So I'm going to click on this last one, which is Fong E. Again, brings up the same kind of thing. Go ahead and click this. Now, when you render something out, when you actually generate your final composition, sometimes it doesn't render a pure black very well. So rather than making his nose pure black like I picture it would be, I'm going to just make it a really, really dark gray, which may seem like a picky detail, but it'll make for a little bit easier distinguishing when you render. So I'm going to go ahead and hit accept, and let's see, I want his eyes to be shiny, so I'm going to give it a blend, which is this second one. Those are typically pretty shiny, pretty useful for stuff like metal. Again, it sometimes doesn't render a pure white very well either. Pure black and pure white kind of has trouble with. So you can either click in this swatch here to bring up your color chooser. I'm going to hit cancel. Or the slider that's right next to it changes your brightness. So I don't need to change the color. Gray's perfect. I just wanted a lighter gray. So I'll drag that up a little bit. again, you're going to want to make sure that you're in number 5 if you hit number 5 on the keyboard. Hopefully you grabbed that by now. Because number 4 doesn't do you any good, you can't see the materials. And on his eye, his pupil, I also want that to be shiny. I want it to be the same material as his actual eyeball, so it doesn't reflect light any different. But again, we're going to make that a very dark gray, but not quite black. And name this one, which I didn't do with his nose or with his actual eyeball. This is going to be called pupil. Okay, so how you go back and fix that, I've named his eye material, or his pupil, a pupil. I'll go ahead and click on his eyeball. You see in the attribute editor where it says P-Sphere shape 7, and blend. The material is always going to be the last tab. So I'll click blend, and then at the top I'll just highlight that and change it to eyeball. And then with his nose, I'll go ahead and click in the attribute, click on his nose, click on the attribute editor, Phong E1, and change that to nose. And then on his, whatever his mouth would probably go here, go ahead and in the attribute editor, once it's selected, highlight that and change this to bare fur light. Okay, so now I just have to go about adding these materials. Since I know obviously his head is going to have the same fur as his ears, or in my head he does. I don't want to have to make a whole new material for that, just for the ear, and then try and match it up perfectly. This is a little shortcut here. We're going to hold down the right mouse button. We're just going to right click on it, and it will bring up this huge menu that we'll be using quite a bit. If you go down, still holding the right mouse button, go down to assign existing material. Now you see all those names that we made for the materials plus Lambert 1. Lambert 1 is your default material, so you don't want to change that because it will change everything's default. But I know that I want his ear to be bare fur dark, so I'll highlight bare fur dark and let go of the right mouse button. Same with the other ear. Select it with the left mouse button, then hold down the right mouse button. Go to assign existing material, bare fur dark. Same with the eyeball, right click, assign existing material, eyeball, and pupil, right click, assign existing material, pupil. So now I have my bear, minus his mouth. Now, sometimes you have to get a little creative when you're making things out of primitive shapes. I gave him a mouth, but his mouth was actually made out of a cone. I just sort of made use of the fact that his face is real round. So I'll show you what I did. I'll hit the space bar to go into my 4-up view and go back to my polygons tab. Okay, so up at the top, click polygons. I used a cone. You could probably use a cylinder or a polygon pipe. I'm just going to go ahead and click a cone. Now I'm going to make this in the front view because that will automatically make it laying on its side. So I'll make that. Okay, and then in the side view I'm going to go and drag it up for height. Doesn't really matter how tall it is. I'm going to hit W to put on my move tool, or you can grab it out of the palette. In the front view I'll go ahead and place it about where I want on his mouth, or where I want his mouth to be. Now in the side view I'm going to grab the rotate tool, or you can hit E. I'm going to grab this red handle and I'm going to tilt it. This is going to this front edge is going to protrude out as his lip, or as his little smile. So I rotated it so that that bottom edge is pretty much flat and pointing straight out. So I'll go ahead and hit W, or you can grab your move tool. I'm going to use the blue handle, and I'm just going to move it until I see that it just peeks out from his actual mouth here, from his jaw. And go back to my perspective view, Going to go over to my rendering tab, going to assign it a blend because I think his lip is wet and shiny, and click the color swatch, go over to the color chooser, make it red, hit accept, and there we go. Ta-da! Now to save it you can go File, Save Scene As, and save it. I've actually already got this saved as Mickey02. And that's how you save and how you assign materials, and we'll see you in the next lesson.